Okay, welcome to this video, which is going to talk you through which GPU driver you need to use with your data center GPU. So this question comes to me probably at least once every week, and it comes to me in various different forms. So I have a data center GPU and I'm running it with bare metal Windows, and I need to know which driver I want to install for it. Another question that I get is, well, I've passed my GPU through using my hypervisor to a virtual machine. Which driver do I need? I've installed the driver from the website and it's not giving me the performance or the functionality that I expected. So first thing to mention is if you are using virtual GPU time slicing technology to slice up the GPU into multiple segments to use in multiple virtual machines, then you're going to have to use the virtual GPU driver. The reason for this is that there's a hypervisor component to the virtual GPU solution, and there's a virtual machine component, a guest driver as well. And those two need to be matched to make sure that you get the correct functionality out of the solution. But the thing is, what happens if we're not using virtual GPU technology and we're using a bare metal deployment of a data center GPU, as you can see here in this diagram? What if we are doing things with a hypervisor, but we're doing it direct pass-through to the virtual machine, bypassing the virtual GPU technology altogether? To really understand the correct driver that you're going to need, you need to understand your workload and how it talks to the GPU. Now, another thing that we need to understand is what mode is our GPU running in. And there are two modes that it can be running in. WDDM, which is Windows Display Driver Model, or TCC, or Compute Mode, which is Tesla Compute Cluster. As you can see from this diagram, if you're in WDDM mode, you're going to get access to the encoders and decoders on the GPU. You're going to get access to compute resources such as CUDA and OpenCL. But also what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to render and accelerate 3D graphics using the various APIs that 3D graphics use to talk to the GPU. By comparison, if you take a look at TCC mode or compute mode, what you'll see is that you have access to the encoder and decoder, you have access to compute resources, but what we don't have is the ability to render 3D graphics. While doing some testing, you might actually want to look at your GPU and find out what mode it's in. Now that's a really simple thing to do. All you need to do is run the NVIDIA-SMI command inside your virtual machine or on your bare metal server. And what you'll see is it'll give you information on whether or not it's in TCC mode or WDDM mode. So which mode is your GPU going to default into when you first install it? Well, if you have an active card that's designed for use in workstations like this RTX A6000 GPU, this is going to default into WDDM mode or graphics mode. Obviously sitting in a workstation, it needs to be able to do more than just compute, it needs to actually be able to display graphics as well. Now, this card here is an A40 GPU, and this is a data center GPU. As you can see, it's passively cooled, so air comes through here from the server chassis and out the back of this GPU. This card is designed to run in TCC mode by default, so its default operation mode will be to give you a compute workload in a data center. Now, the problem comes is when you have one of these cards in the data center and you want to use it to render 3D graphics, like if you're running a rendering farm or if you're running VDI desktops or something of that nature. So what's the solution to this? Well, we can take one of these workstation cards, put it into a data center chassis. But unfortunately, most of our data center OEMs don't certify workstation cards that are designed for a workstation form factor in their server chassis. The other way to achieve this is to put this GPU into WDDM mode or graphics mode using the virtual GPU driver and an RTX virtual workstation license. So if you do find yourself in the situation where you have a data center GPU and it's defaulting to TCC mode, then the chances are you need to use the virtual GPU license and the vGPU driver in order to unlock WDDM mode or graphics mode. So of course there are some exceptions to this rule as well. You don't always need to use the vGPU driver in order to unlock graphics mode on a data center GPU. For instance, if you have an A40 or an L40, those cards actually have display ports on the back of them here. And there are some use cases, specifically in media and entertainment, where you need to take some display outs from these cards. So what we do is we allow you the ability to take this data center GPU and actually turn it into a workstation GPU if you like. So if you have an A40 or an L40 GPU, what you can do is you can download our standard RTX Enterprise driver from our website at nvidia.com/drivers. Once you've done that, you can run a tool called the Display Mode Selector tool, which will turn that graphics card's ports on the back. Once you do that, you can then go and use the NVIDIA SMI command that we have by standard in our driver pack to turn that GPU into WDDM mode. This means that you no longer need to use the vGPU driver for A40 or L40 GPUs in order to get graphics mode on them. But bear in mind, of course, that this is only for pass-through configurations and only for bare metal configurations as well, where you're running with a Windows operating system directly on top of that server hardware. So let's summarise. If you want to use graphics APIs and do graphics acceleration with your data center GPU, you'll need to be in WDDM or graphics mode on the GPU. If you have a compute-only workload, then TCC mode will be enough. There are in fact a few situations with even with the virtual GPU driver, you might want to turn that GPU into TCC mode to get slightly faster CUDA kernel launch times as well. Workstation GPUs will always default into WDDM or graphics mode to display and render 3D graphics. Data center GPUs will always default into TCC or compute mode in order to do high performance computing or AI, that kind of workload. If you want to run a workload that needs graphics APIs like DirectX or OpenGL in a data center with a data center GPU, you'll need to switch the GPU to WDDM mode using the vGPU driver. That is unless you have an A40 or an L40 GPU, where, as I explained, you can use the Display Mode Selector tool alongside the NVIDIA SMI command to switch that GPU into WDDM mode, even using the free RTX Enterprise driver that comes down from our website. So hopefully that answers some of your questions about which mode you need to be in, and really it comes down to the workload that you're running and whether it's a graphics workload or a compute workload. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you.